everyone. Welcome to another episode of Student Spotlight, where we showcase some of the work our past students have done. I'm Ingrid, and with me here is Chloe, who participated in the Rethink essay competition this year. And it is our pleasure to have her on this episode to share her experience with us. So to start things off, Chloe, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what year of high school you're in, and what your academic interests are?
All right. So, hi everyone. I'm Chloe. I was born in London, and then I came back to Beijing to study a few years of international school. And I recently graduated from sixth form in Westminster School in London. And at the time, my A levels when I was attending were economics, geography, philosophy, and English literature. So, moving on, I'll be studying at Cambridge University, and that's also kind of part of the reason I applied to the essay competition, because I was just interested in seeing like what a formal dinner would roughly be like before I came to Cambridge. And I'll be studying philosophy as well because I'm really interested in political philosophy and ethics, specifically AI ethics and feminist ethics. So it was amazing that I could kind of combine these two concepts in the essay competition, actually.
Mm. Can you share with us how you discovered this essay competition?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I hadn't been in any of CCIR's events before. And I think this is the first year that this essay competition was made, or because it was shared really widely in Chinese social media at the time. And I was actually helping my friend's sister get into Westminster through 16 plus. I was offering her ideas, and I thought an essay competition might help. So I was kind of looking around for essay competitions, and I thought this one was quite high quality because it kind of had like a range of subjects. So that were like quite unique and like niche. And I thought if you managed to do an essay on that, you'd kind of grow in skill set and you grow an understanding of like a topic you wouldn't necessarily have known before. Like AI and beauty was really quite niche. And I was actually scrolling through it, and because I've done like some research on like AI ethics before, like I'm part of my school's philosophy society, and we've been like quite AI heavy this year. We like welcome two speakers talking about AI and theology, and I'm also on my school's AI focus team, mainly talking to like teachers about like AI ethics and how to bring it into the wellbeing curriculum. So I actually saw in the question, I was like, wait, I could do that. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how I ended up doing the competition. Yeah.
Mhm. I feel like AI is still like a relatively like new topic. I know it's been a few years, but how did you start like developing interest in like the ethics of AI and kind of the philosophy aspects of it? Because I mean, as a high school student, this is really impressive because this is not really a topic that I remember taking in high school.
Yeah, it was, I think it came from a point of existential fear, because
Mm-hmm.
kind of combining an interest in philosophy with an Asian household, like the question I often get from my relatives, my mom's like, oh, my daughter's really interested in philosophy, is how is she gonna get paid? And my sister actually studies philosophy at university, and she told me, oh, actually like AI ethics is this really nascent and growing field. So it was definitely a bit like, oh, I want to kind of, out of like a cultural need, I kind of needed to
Mm-hmm.
kind of prove myself. Every time they're like, oh, how do you make money with philosophy? Well, I'm like, well, right now like Google's hiring like kind of like a lot of ethicists to like deal with their jobs. But after like reading some of like the main literature on AI by like AI experts like Stuart Russell, who I think went to Dartmouth conference, and he's like a really intelligent British AI expert, I kind of realized that, first of all, like the amount of philosophy that was included in the like leading AI text, literally exploring the ethics of it, was because it was mainly written by experts in Google. They were often like lacking in ethics. They often like chose a really basic utilitarian approach that was basically about, oh well, if we need to like sacrifice some people for other people, as long as it's for the greatest good, and the consequences are
Mm-hmm.
basically justify the means. And I thought that was a bit odd. And also I remember reading this specific thing from Russell's like Human Compatible, where I really do like him. I just use him as a counterexample, not to kind of explain AI ethics. He basically talked about how right now everyone's scared of AI ethics because they think AI projects like an alpha male psychology, or like the people who design project an alpha male psychology, but actually AI could actually be female, like really caring and really like submissive. And I realized that maybe there's like kind of this gap between like the experts who mainly design AI, who maybe are like more like men, and like there are studies that prove that like around like 80% of like AI experts are like men, and like they mostly like pattern technology. And like, you know, women who might offer more equal perspective are kind of like, it's quite a wide gap. So I think through that I kind of
Yeah.
developed an interest in exploring like AI bias against like women minority groups. So yeah.
No, that's definitely like a very niche gap that you highlighted. I didn't really even think about that because I also was working in tech, and I feel like as unfortunate as it is, I think ethics is like isn't as like it's still like relatively new, and I think having people like yourself who's like so interested in this niche and like having your specific perspectives will really like close the gap and like educate everyone a little bit more on what we need to kind of focus on and what we should like prioritize, you know, with more AI developments and tech developments. Yeah, so thank you for sharing. So, for our listeners who are new to the Rethink Essay Competition, it's an annual competition, and the mission has always been to promote critical thinking and exploration of a wide range of thought provoking and often controversial subject matters. So, for this year, 10 essay prompts were contributed by the professors from our unique faculty network, including mentors from Harvard, Brown, UC Berkeley, Cambridge, Oxford, and MIT. And also a list of recommended reading is also is provided with each prompt to encourage students to dive into each subject matter from various perspectives. So, Chloe, you did talk a little bit about AI and philosophy, but could you tell us a little bit about your prompts specifically, and I guess maybe a little bit about your paper and the argument you were trying to make? Maybe so.
Oh wow, that's a big question. Okay, so like the question I think was really long, but like I'm gonna condense it. It's basically about how AI, recent developments in AI, like the question mentions like beauty filters from like Snapchat and like Instagram would like kind of affect the prevailing beauty standard, and basically how there might be political how and if how like or like if what like political consequences that would like result in. And I think in addition to the prompt, right, there were also like judges' comments, where I think like one of the experts you spoke about basically kind of nudged me towards the direction of like viewing beauty more of as something political, so something that's influenced by a lot of power structures and ideals. Like I think it mentions how beauty is a standard that takes power away from already powerless minorities such as women, disabled people, the elderly, rather than viewing beauty as something that's subjective. And I think disinterested is like the word that like Kant use is to talk about his aesthetic view of beauty. And my essay basically argues that, in a nutshell, beauty standards are basically human ideas, and AI doesn't so much as change them as magnify them through different ways. And I basically talk about how this brings consequences onto women, for example, who become objects that are perceived rather than men who perceive them. And an example of that is the kind of idea that a phone forces and its filters force us to maintain ourselves, even when people aren't watching. Like my brother, he has a phone called like a Huawei from China, and that phone basically has in its camera has like a built-in beauty filter, and it kind of means that even when you're just in like your most comfortable position, like you just woke up from bed, you're just chilling, you're looking at your phone, and suddenly you go onto Snapchat or something, and you start looking at yourself through the camera. You feel like even in these most like private, intimate moments, you're almost being like it's almost like you're under surveillance. It's almost like you're under surveillance by like a
Mhm.
beauty police, like an AI to kind of have to control you in like a certain way to make you like adhere to this prevailing beauty norm. And on the other hand, like men are less likely to use these filters for these purposes, as some studies show. And that just creates this societal binary where like women are the ones who have to like uphold standards of beauty while like men are kind of just like chilling. I remember there was this GQ article that philosopher Amir mentioned in her essay, The Right to Sex, where she talks about basically like the dad bod and GQ fetishizing like the dad bod and saying like, oh, it's so sexy, even though it's clearly not. Whereas you can never imagine a magazine article doing the same about like a woman's body, like the mum bod. It's like they sometimes talk about different intersecting modes of beauty, but they're often of the same type. And it just ends up being quite binary. And I explored that and also a bit about how image to text generators kind of deal with intersectionality in a bad way and how that has to do with data and a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's definitely like, especially for younger generations who grow up with these filters, like I can imagine that it just kind of changes like how you perceive your body and like kind of the standards that you feel like you have to uphold, even when you are just like at your most comfortable moments. So yeah, I'm really curious as to like how the societal shift, when we grow up in this sort of environment. Um, how did you find the provided reading list? Did you do extra research, outside of the reading list? Did it provide like a variety of perspectives? And I guess also linking to that, I know this is kind of a long question, but like, did you feel like your argument kind of changed as you're doing your research?
Yeah, I was really interested by like what a reading list would kind of like be provided on like such a broad question because it talks about AI, it talks about like minorities, it talks about like beauty.
Mhm.
It's like both philosophical and sociological as like its category suggests. So like I think the reading list mainly like had some like major books about AI, including like Russell Human Compatible that I already spoke about that like made me think like ew, like this guy's a bit like the words like he uses about like so AI is kind of like reflective this binary that's not good. So that kind of made me kind of view AI in a more biased light than like I would have before because you would naturally come to think that AI is quite like ethically neutral, but then you see kind of those things and you realize because the people who build them might not be neutral, so they might not be. So I think that was one of the reflections I got from one of the books in the reading list. I also liked Life 3.0 and like Hannah Fry's like Hello World, both of which I included. I think those helped me understand like the AI side more. But because I didn't really understand, I think the beauty side as much, I did some extended reading and I really enjoyed Intact by Claire Chambers, who basically talks about the philosophical idea of like an unmodified body and why maybe it's important to see the body as to understand what it means by like an unmodified body. Like it's very easy to say like, oh, like just give up makeup or something, but like to really break down this idea of how beauty is so intricately like how ideas of it are like so woven into like the human psyche really required like deeper understanding. And she really helped me understand why like the human body is like a site of political importance when it comes to like beauty standards. And I also
Mhm.
went to a talk at LSE around March that was done by like two leading AI experts. I think that was more of just to see like the main like consensus of the field rather than like anything specific for the essay. But that was also really cool. Yeah.
Mhm. I just thought of another question about like, I guess it's like maybe just related to surveillance in general. Because I mean, I feel like if you go on like Chinese social media, like Xiaohongshu, like you always see people just getting snapped, like whether they know or not, and then like people just taking street pictures of people. And almost I feel like the consent is just not there. Like I myself have been approached by like someone doing an interview, and then I was like, this is, I didn't give my consent to being filmed or posted. And then, I saw the video and then people were leaving comments and I'm like, this is not,
Mm,
this is not what I wanted.
yeah.
So I think like, I think that just makes you feel like you have to be a little bit more like ready to like look presentable when you go out in case that happens. And that just is kind of like the society we live in now. Maybe it's like not as related to AI, but still, like I guess that is such a shift in our beauty standards and our kind of like perceived having to look a certain way when we go outside. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
no,
what was,
yeah.
yeah.
Sorry? No, I feel
Oh
you. It's
no.
it's around Ampholut that you got snapped because like whenever I go there in Shanghai, I always it's actually scary. Like I get used to it
Yeah.
after a while, but like you're right, like we shouldn't get used to it. It's just horrible and weird.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
scary, like going on social media and you don't know because like social media has your location as well. Like they know like what you look at,
Mhm.
like where you've been, and like they just end up showing you something on your feed and you're like, oh my God, that's my friend, or like, oh my God, that's me. Like,
I know. Like three
yeah,
people sent me this Xiaohongshu link of my interview somehow. And I was like, oh
yeah.
my gosh, I did not want this.
Sorry. Yeah.
What was the process like for on working on your essay from like start to finish? Because it sounds like such a daunting process. Like once you get the prompt, dissecting it, doing your research, writing, polishing it. How did you approach that?
Yeah, because I was doing it while like I was doing my A levels, right? So I think it was a more
Mhm.
fragmented process. So I kind of like heard about it in like I don't remember, was it like February or something like quite earlier on? Um, and I started doing like some mapping out. I think like given like the breadth of like the prompt, like I initially wanted to include, for example, stuff on like ableism and also like ageism in it as well because that was mentioned in the tips, but I didn't end up having enough space because also I needed to condense it all in 2,000 words. I think it was less of like having to understand the content than like trying not to like word bomb myself or like the essay and like having to condense it. So I think I like planned it out initially and it took in my head and that took maybe like 3 months. Like I was just planning it in my head while doing my other preparation. But the actual essay writing process actually just took like 72 hours of basically no sleep. because
Gosh.
because I had like I made the wrong decision of basically asking my essay teacher in school, like my ethics teacher in school, like, oh, I have an essay. Do you want to read it? Or like, no, like, do you want to like give me some tips on it? And then they were like, Chloe, you're supposed to be focusing on your A levels, Chloe. You have like 2 more months. And I was like, oh my God. And that kind of like made me realize that because I love doing these things, like I went to like a talk with like the Westminster MP for like no, sorry, the Westminster candidate, Labour candidate running for MP, like the day before my exam. I'm just so interested in like things like outside of like what like my school curriculum teaches. But then I realized I really needed to balance that with like actually getting into university. So I remember it was during like half term, which is like a week holiday, when I was just at like a friend's house and I was because I'm like boarding. So when I'm not boarding, I just live in friends' houses or my mom's friends' houses, and I was just sitting there and I was not doing anything aside from the essay, and it took me like 72 hours. But like luckily I kind of had like the framework in my brain. So I did know how to write it. It was just I knew I had to like get it right in like the first try because I didn't have time for something that I was so passionate about. So I was like, I needed to do this.
You saying your process makes your result even more impressive because you received the gold award, which is the highest distinction for this essay competition. So you just kind of saying that you worked on it for 72 hours in one take is very, very impressive. So I want to extend my congratulations. To give our listeners an idea of the rigor of this competition, our submissions, or each submission undertake 4 rounds of blind review from scholars from Cambridge, Oxford, Stanford, MIT, and several Ivy League universities. And we saw over 4,200 submissions from more than 50 countries, and only 33 awards were given. So for Chloe, she received the highest distinction, and so that's a really incredible achievement. So let's talk about it. What were your reactions when you received this result?
Oh, it was actually on like the morning before my final exam for my A levels that I saw it, and it just really gave me like the ego boost I needed. I was really
Mm-hmm.
happy. I was like, "Yay, mom, I got in!" Like, and I phoned like my friends. I was like, "Yeah, I got in." They were like, "Shut up, we're about to do an exam. Don't like stress me out." And then I went and did my exam. But I think it just made me feel it was really needed. I don't know if you guys like planned it because like that was the day where like most of like the final exams were coming out for A levels, but like it just like thank you for that. I really needed that.
I know this is, I mean, I'm not sure if that was planned, but it seems like serendipitous that it happened that way, especially as you're going to the university that it's kind of inspired, I guess, like the symposium was taking place at. How do you think, oh, sorry, I forgot to ask if this was your first like formal academic essay, or have you done essays like this in the past?
In terms of like essay competitions or like in terms of like other stuff that
Mm.
like
I guess
um
also, I guess in terms of essay competition, but also just like writing an essay of this like this level, because it's a proper like formal academic essay, I guess. It's kind of different from the ones that you would write in high school. I'm not sure. Is this your first experience writing this type of essay?
I think both yes and no. No
Mm,
in the sense that like I've done like essay competitions before in the past. And like for my school is really like duet. Like it's really rigorous in like an unnecessary sense. So
mm,
actually like during like the first summer of like during the summer of year 12, we're basically told to produce a 4,000 word essay on like a random subject of choice. In order to like enhance our UCAS profile. For no other reason. Like I just produced it to my teacher and he was like, okay, that's good. He didn't even read through it like carefully. I was like, what was the point of doing all of that? And that essay was actually on like
mm,
AI, like feminism, because that was something that I chose myself. But like in terms of like no, it's because I think this is like kind of the first essay competition where I actually got to choose such a niche topic, if that made sense. Like I previously done like one essay competition by like a run by a UK school because all my other friends were doing it. Like that's kind of hype that goes around these competitions. And I that they always had a problem about AI, but it was kind of really like it was kind of wishy-washy and generic. It was like, oh, like what if AI creates unemployment? Like what will happen then?
mm,
And I was like, that would be bad. So I think this is like very different in terms of like
mm,
when I saw the topic, I was like, oh, this is so interesting. I could spend so long thinking about this. And at like the prize winning ceremony, I was talking to this other guy and he did one about I don't know what he did. It was really impressive though, something about biology. And he was like, I felt the same way. Like it was just like something about
mm.
patterns. Like it was just something that was really worth thinking about. And I guess it's because of the effort you guys put into choosing the people who make the questions. I was like, that's so sophisticated. I need to think about it.
And I think depending on everyone's like personal experiences, there's not a clear-cut answer. So I feel like if there are only 10 prompts, but I'm sure like if two people choose the same prompt, their take is going to be so different and their
Yeah.
perspective is going to be so different. Um, so how do you feel that this experience has changed you as a student going into your first year of university?
Um, I think because this is like the first time I've worked, I think like without sleeping for so long for like something that I was really interested in. Um, like because I've never been kind of like I have friends who basically just don't sleep and do the essay one night before the deadline and they always do that. I think I've never kind of been pushed in such a way and I think I now realize that like if I'm ever pushed by something, it's because I'm really passionate about it. And I think the competition kind of made me more because as you said, like these questions are so complex, like the questions that are mentioned in the competition, like there is no one right answer to it. The fact that I was able to come up with something I think that and have my opinions heard made me think that maybe because I have considered going into academia and actually in like the AI industry, I was thinking specifically of joining like the Oxford Institute for Ethics in AI. I think this would be, I think this like essay kind of like sedimented my belief that I do want to work in academia and research and specifically here, and I think it'd be really cool. Yeah.
Wait, that's incredible. I'm really glad that that's how you like that. Not only did you kind of go through the entire process and like kind of like, grew confidence while you're doing it, but also it kind of affirmed your what you might want, your interests and what how you might want to proceed in your higher education. So you did mention before on the celebration. So for our listeners, as a celebration for the accomplishments of our participants and people who submitted, we host a symposium at Cambridge yearly. And Chloe was able to attend this year. Can you share a little bit about your experience and what it was like to be in that environment with other peers and scholars?
Yeah, so we had like I think like a day of like supposed to be 2 days, but I actually was in like Greece right before. So I had to like fly back and like it was I flew back on the 29th and I think I attended like the thing on like 30th, which was first of all like there was like a lot of talks given by like both like um former Nobel Prize winners and also like I think other student presenters. And I think it was really interesting like listening to both of them. The Nobel Prize winners especially, I think I asked a question and basically got replied, "What do you mean?" Like I think like they were really smart. I had no idea what they were saying because I'm not a STEM kid and but they were really smart and I think it's just like a good exposure. Like because obviously like I've never heard of Nobel Prize winners speak. Like it's a big thing. And afterwards there was like a dinner in like King's College and it was great because it was King's College and I sat next to I think um someone who's currently pursuing her PhD in Cambridge and she offered me like a lot of tips which was really cool. And I also like the guy who was sitting right in front of me, I think he's applying for university next year, was like the girl also sitting across from me. So that and they were both of them wanted to go to Cambridge actually. Yeah, so that created like a lot of solidarity. So that was really interesting. But I still keep in touch with like the guy who I was talking to on like the day and actually like yesterday like he was texting me because he saw that I updated my LinkedIn or something because I don't go to my previous school anymore. I go to like Cambridge. So I like changed that and he was like, "Congratulations on your offer, Chloe." And I was like how do you know that? Like thank you, but like how did you know? And he was like, "Oh, like people who follow you get like an update whenever you change your profile." And I was like, "Oh, can I disable it?" And he showed me how to disable it. So yeah, great friends.
No, I know what you mean. Sometimes you just like want to update your profile without like creating a post about it. No, but that sounds so nice. Like everyone there is clearly like passionate about the topic they did their essay about or did their presentation about. Seems like just like such a nice community to be in, and you can learn so much just from like talking to people, peers or professors. So yeah, I'm really glad that you had a really good experience. I would say that's kind of towards the end of our interview. Do you have anything else that you want to share with our listeners before we end this?
Uh, just that it's like a great essay competition and like join. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You heard her. You should. So everyone should do this next year. It's free to submit, I believe. So you really have there's no reason not to. So that would conclude our episode for today. Thank you so much, Chloe, for joining us and sharing your experiences with me and our listeners. And congratulations once again on your success with the essay competition, as well as getting into Cambridge. And best of luck with all your future endeavors.
Thank you.